Good evening and welcome everyone to the fourth episode of Guess Who, the Ohio State University's STEM game show brought to you by the STEM Impact Collaborative. I'm Courtney Price, one of your two co-hosts, and I'm joined by the wonderful Wayne Slingman this evening. Hello. So before we get started this evening, we do have a few short announcements to make sure that everybody enjoys this evening's program. We have enabled Zoom's automatic captioning function, and you are able to toggle that on or off as needed throughout the program. And speaking about the program, this is highly participatory. And even though you're on the other side of a computer screen, we want to hear from you, and that will happen through answering polls, adding questions, upvoting questions, and using the chat throughout the program. So if you have a question that you want to suggest for our guessers to ask the contestants throughout the show, add that to the Q&A. If you have technical difficulties, you can throw that comment into the chat function, and one of our behind the scenes team will swoop in and save the day. You can also add any just random witty banter and humorous side notes that you want through either Q&A or the chat function. This is a BYOB event, so you are in charge of your own beverages, bites, and bathrooms. Hopefully you know where all of those things are, and it is almost time to get started. But before we do start, it's important that we acknowledge that the land the Ohio State University occupies is the ancestral and contemporary home of the Shawnee, Potawatomi, Delaware, Miami, Peoria, Seneca, Wyandot, Ojibwe, and Cherokee peoples. Specifically, the university resides on land that was ceded during the 1795 Treaty of Greenville and the forced removal of tribes through the Indian Removal Act of 1830. We want to honor the resiliency of these tribal nations and to recognize the historical contexts that have and continue to affect Indigenous peoples of this land. Okay, now it's time to get started. Now, tonight's game show, Guess Who, is a fast-paced question and answer game where our two guessers, who you'll meet in just a moment, will work to solve a number of challenges that are focused on our three contestants. As I mentioned, you can play along at home and help our guessers find their way to the correct answers by using Q&A and chat. We're going to have 3 rounds of competition this evening, and if we don't talk too much during those, we might even have time for Q&A at the end. Now, before we go any further, let's bring our two guessers on stage. We have Dr. Jonathan Jacobs and Ash Davis, and I want to give them each a moment to introduce themselves. So Jonathan and Ash, if you can come on camera. All right, we're going to test you here. You have 60 seconds to tell us how fabulous you are. Let's start with Ash.
Hello, I'm Ash, and I'm real excited to be here. I am so ready to get learned, man. So I'm a meta performer at Shadowbox Live, and what that means is I not only sing, act, and dance, and I'm on the band stage, but I also write comedy for all the material that we perform on stage, and I'm also the community relations coordinator. So I find cool and creative ways for Shadowbox Live to give back to the city of Columbus.
Awesome, thanks Ash. And now Jonathan, you have 60 seconds.
Hey everybody, great to be here. I'm pretty sure you've never heard of plant pathology, but I'm a plant pathologist. So in my lab, we have a research lab on campus. We study how microbes kill plants. So microbes kill people and animals. They also kill plants. So if you see some fungus on the leaves of the plants outside, that's what we study. Really excited to be here to make some guesses and potentially make a fool out of myself.
Awesome. That's what we're all here for. So if you're not making a fool of yourself, you're not doing it right. So thank you to Ash and to Jonathan for being here tonight. We want to let everyone know that they are competing for our love, admiration, and bragging rights. Nothing more, nothing less. So they are good sports for being here. Now on to our contestants. We have searched deep into the heart of Ohio State University to find researchers who are willing to put up with our shenanigans. So at this point, I want to now invite our 3 contestants to join us on screen. We have Allison, Helen, and Marcos. Go ahead and join me. All right, very good. Here we are. So Before we jump into the meat and potatoes of our game, let's start with a little bit of small talk. And while our lives are getting slightly more interesting as we all start to venture outside a little bit more these days, let's start with the question, what is the most interesting thing that has happened to you in the last 6 months? So I'm going to start with Allison, because I know you've had something big that's happened recently. Maybe you want to tell us about it.
I did. Thank you. Yeah, I got married almost
Yay.
4 weeks ago. It'll be a month on May 9th. So
Congratulations, and thank you for being here. All right, how about Helen? What's the most exciting thing that's happened to you in 6 months?
I actually defended my dissertation about a month ago at this point, so I will be graduating on Sunday.
That's very exciting. Those are 2 hard things to follow. Marcus, what do you got?
I guess yeah, they are really hard to follow. I'd say that I recently started a new job with a new company that's going to fund me for the rest of my PhD, so I'm pretty excited for that.
Wow, you know, you guys are kind of topping all the rest of our previous contestants with your fabulous lives. So I'm sure though, after tonight, when someone asks you that question, regardless of marriage or dissertation status, you're going to say that Guess Who was definitely the most impressive thing you've done. So, all right, well, let's get started. So as I mentioned, we have 3 games that we're going to play tonight. Our guessers are going to be competing against each other to figure out whatever it is we want them to know. We'll tell you how the games work right before they get started. If you've been following the Guess Who legacy over the past year, you know that each episode we change it up a little bit. Tonight we have our first round, which is called A Truth and 2 Lies. Then we have round 2, which is What is This? And we're going to end with Draw It. And as I mentioned, if we have time, we'll do some Q&A. We're chatty people. So at this point, I'm going to pass it over to my co-host Wayne, and he's going to take it away.
All right, so I'll be the host for round 1. So for round 1, we have a truth and 2 lies. So the contestant working in this area, so we're going to have 3 different topic areas, and our topic areas are air, water, and mind. But we're going to have the contestant who is in that topic area is going to tell you the truth, and the other 2 will lie to you. And we will alternate back and forth between our guessers who will ask questions. So if you want to add stuff into the chat and suggest that next question, feel free to jump in there. But we will alternate back and forth with our guessers and then go through our contestants, and they will have to answer each question. At home, just suggest in the Q&A or the chat, and we will see what we can do to get those answered on the screen. So, all right, so for our first topic, we have air. And so our contestant order, the order that they will answer in is going to be Helen, Marcos, and Allison. So you have that in your head. And our first question will go to Ash. So Ash, what is your question about air?
It's actually T's question here. She would like to know what the hell wind is and why can't I see it?
All right, so Helen, you want to go first?
Okay, so wind is essentially just the movement of air with changes in the weather. Will be my succinct answer.
I love it. All right, Marcos.
Yeah, wind is I'm trying not to copy Helen's response, but like the movement of, I would say, like particles depending on changing pressures across different places.
All right, and Allison.
Yeah, my answer is pretty similar, but yeah, it's wind is the movement of air and everything in it, and it's moved by gradients in pressure and temperature. And you can't see it because you can't see air, and so you can't see moving air.
Genius.
I like it.
Man.
All 3 similar answers. All right, next up, Jonathan, you have your question.
I'm going to build right on that. What is in a fart?
I love it. I love it. Okay, so Helen, you're going to take us
Thanks
off.
for setting that up, Ash.
What is in a fart?
So there is air in a fart. There also might be some microbes that are present in the air from a fart as well. You are a plant pathologist. I'm sure some of those microbes may overlap.
I love it. Marcos, what is
Yes.
a fart?
So, and those little particles, there are also other little particles that have smells, which are the things that you smell when they touch your nose.
And Allison, what is in a fart?
I think Marcos and Helen pretty much nailed it on the head, but I'll add that even though, you know, the air that we breathe is made up of carbon dioxide, farts are especially made up of carbon dioxide because that's what we expel when we digest food and respirate.
Awesome, awesome. All right, so we're going to move on to our next topic, which is water. And so now, just so the contestants know which order we're going to be answering in, it's going to be Marcos, Allison, and then Helen. So you don't have to go first this time. And the first question will go to Jonathan. What is your question about water?
So I heard that water actually freezes not at 0 or 32 degrees. It actually can be colder. What is actually like the coldest temperature water is in its liquid form?
All right, so the question is, what is the lowest temperature water can stay liquid? And Marcos, you are up first.
You know, that is a great question. And it honestly depends on what is inside of the water. Some things can be mixed in. So how much salt or other chemicals are in the water. So it really does depend on what's in your water that you're drinking or not drinking.
Allison, what is the coldest temperature that water can stay a liquid?
I don't know the coldest temperature, but I know that it can be well under -5 degrees Celsius in the oceans without freezing because of the salt content. And yeah, like Marco said, the freezing temperature of water really depends on the solutes that are in it.
And Helen, what is your response?
I do feel like mine's pretty similar. I'm not sure the exact temperature, but it does depend on the contents of it. It can freeze at temperatures below 0 if there are other salts in the water.
I love it. You all are going to make this really, really hard on our guessers. All right. So Ash, do you have a question that's going to shake things up a little bit? What's your question about water?
Okay, my question about water is, what does the future of water conservation look like?
I love it. What does the future of water conservation look like, Marcos?
Oh man, what a great question. It's going to involve, you know, changing how we use water for different processes and reusing water in other areas. So, you know, reusing wastewater for other things on top of finding new ways to produce fresh water.
Nice. I like it. Allison, what is the future for water conservation?
Yeah, I agree. That's a great question. I definitely think it will be a lot about reusing the water, the fresh water that we have where people live. Although it could also be harvesting water from other freshwater sources like the ice sheets or icebergs. I've heard of some people doing that, or desalinating the ocean water. Because the ocean is kind of taking up all of the fresh water that we have right now.
And Helen.
I think my answer is going to be fairly similar in terms of reusing water and finding ways to get fresh water either through purification or other ways to clean up, water with any sort of contaminants in it.
All righty. Good answers. I also want to say thank you to our audience for, typing some wonderful questions that have been in my head the entire time that we started talking about all of this. And do fart particles actually affect the water in them? And if you fart onto an ice cube, will it start to melt? So these are excellent questions. We'll come back to it as our guessers are starting to figure out who studies what. We'll get some of those questions answered. All right, for our last topic, let's go on to mind. And in this case, we're going to have Allison, then Helen, then Marcos in order. And Ash is going to ask the first question.
Okay, question about a mind. Can you help me find mine? And is a lobotomy an actual option?
All right, Allison.
Um, I'll start by saying that in most cultures, I think people conceptualize the mind to be part of the brain, which is in your head. So you might start by looking there. I'm not
It's
really
under my
sure.
hat.
Perhaps. And I don't know of any doctors that are still performing lobotomies, but I'm sure you could ask her.
All right, thank you, Allison. Helen, where is Ash's mind, and is a lobotomy an option?
So I think the generally accepted thing is that the mind is so the mind is a part of the brain in some way. Most doctors nowadays will not perform lobotomies unless it's in the case of maybe like a seizure or something where you have a tumor of some sort or some sort of medical condition to show that a lobotomy is necessary.
All right, and Marcos, where is Ash's mind?
So I won't piggyback too hard off of them, but I will say, if you find yours, maybe you can help me find mine, because I have no idea where mine is either. But in terms of lobotomies, I think yeah, it's not pretty common anymore, and there's much more preferred ways of treating the mind first before going there.
I'm glad that your dog Tuba likes to attempt lobotomies there every once in a while. I know my cat probably had one early on. She's quite happy and has also lost her marbles. All right, so while these contestants or these guessers start to shout out who they think studies what, you guys at home can throw any questions that you might want to know about before we go into our polls. So Jonathan, Ash, do you have a clue who studies what at this time?
Well, I think I'm leaning towards Helen is the study of the mind. So that's where I'm going towards.
All right, so let's open up poll 1 and we will just ask the question, who studies air? Ash has told us that she thinks that Helen might be leaning towards the mind, but let's look at who studies air. I guess all 3 polls are open. I didn't know we could even do that. So go ahead and vote on all 3 questions. Look at that. We learned something brand new right now. So vote for who you think studies air, water, or the mind. Jonathan, do you have any hints at who you think studies what?
So I would agree. I think Helen studies the mind. I am confused about air and water, but my hunch says Allison is air and Marcos is water. That is my gut feeling.
That's my guess too, because Marcos was real excited when I asked a serious question about water.
Hey, Wayne,
little...
I think, oh, go ahead, Ash.
No, go ahead, I'm done.
I was gonna say, did we have Jonathan ask his mind question? Maybe that could be the final bit of information. I feel like we skipped him.
The final bit of information that we need. Yeah, no, because I've definitely lost my mind too. End of the semester, you know, the force is not with me today. But Jonathan, did you have a question about the mind?
I forgot. No, I'm just joking. I'll just give a random question. I always talk about my plants being happy. How are plants' happiness different than my happiness as a person?
Oh, I like that question. All right, and we'll still go. Allison, you can go first.
Well, plants, I think, can be made happy in all the same ways that we can. We can be made happy in all the same ways that plants can, because we have all of the same, I think we have all the same sensors or senses that plants do. We can pick up vibrations from sound and light and all of those things, but plants don't have neurons, I don't think. So they can't put any like value to the things that are making them healthy and happy.
All righty, next up, Helen.
I think the big difference is how they express happiness, perhaps. When you have a happy plant, usually they're, you can read it based off of their appearance, which I guess you can kind of say the same for us, but you know, happy plant usually it's really green, really growing really well, thriving, but just looks a little bit different than how we look when we're happy.
All righty, and Marcos.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the big difference is while we have the same basic needs, that people have greater needs. And on top of that, we have a certain level of self-awareness that plants don't have necessarily. They don't know I am plant. This is not an I am group moment, unfortunately. And so, yeah, I think the difference is that level of self-awareness and those other needs that we have that might not be necessary for survival, but more of just want or desire.
I like these answers. I like these answers. All right, Jonathan and Ash, you two are in the spotlight. Who studies air?
Okay, my final vote. Allison studies air. Marcos is water. Helen mind.
All right, and Jonathan?
We're on the same page here.
All right, so I guess we can start with Helen, because everybody agrees that you study the mind. What do you study? And tell us a little bit about what you do for about 1 minute.
All right, so I do study the mind. My my research overall is looking at how psychiatric conditions, things like anxiety and depression in a pregnant woman, can impact her growing baby, and how the brain of the baby can be impacted as well. So it is the mind, but it's more along the lines of how the brain itself changes during development with depression, anxiety of the mom, and more than that, how stress can even impact the brain development of the baby and can impact behavior later in life.
So my mind is with my mom. That's good to know.
Your mind was shaped by your mom, that's for sure.
Awesome, thank you, Helen. All right, Marcos, I think the audience has decided that you study water. Go ahead and tell us what you actually study and go on for about 1 minute and describe it.
Yeah, so I actually study quote unquote air. I deal with mainly looking at different forms of capturing CO2 out of the air, and looking at the bigger systems that we have here in the world, and connecting everything and making it all connected and making it more realistic to capture more CO2 out of the air, because we all know that it's kind of important to do right now. And so how do we make that a reality is kind of where I focus in more.
Awesome, thank you very much. And Allison, go ahead and tell us what you study, and then take a minute to describe what your research is.
Sure. So I'm sure you've figured out by now that I am the one who studies water. To be specific, I study frozen water. I study glaciers in Antarctica and Greenland. And the motivation for my research is to really figure out how quickly the sea level is rising. If you've read at all the IPCC reports or the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change reports, they show that like we don't know how much sea level is going to rise in the next 100 years, and like half or more of that uncertainty is due to us not knowing how fast Antarctica and Greenland are melting. And so I use remote sensing data to try and figure out exactly how quickly the ice is melting and how quickly it's contributing to sea level rise.
Thank you, Allison. And thank you, our guessers. I think that two of our contestants totally got your brains twisted up, but we were able to guess what Helen studies. All right, so now we are on to round 2. Courtney, go ahead and take it away.
All right, I'm going to take back over. So we figured out what our folks do. Ooh, that was snazzy. Now we're going to figure out what they use to get their research done. So this round is called What Is It? We are going to have 3 rounds, and each round we're going to show you a photo that's related to the research of one of our contestants. We're going to give our people at home a chance to banter back and forth in the chat or the Q&A about what they think this item is used for. And we're going to have our guessers do the same, but not in the chat. They're actually going to use their voices. And then after people seem to think they know what they are looking at, we'll have our researchers tell us the truth. So, okay, so if our mysterious game board could put up our first picture, we are under the topic of water. And as a reminder, this is Allison's field of research. So folks at home, tell us in the chat why you think this is the image for Allison's research. And Ash, Jonathan, what are your deep, dark thoughts here?
The airplane that we just saw on the board?
Yeah, I don't know where it went.
It's an airplane.
It is an airplane. Why would that be
indeed an
related?
airplane.
Well done.
Is it a special kind of airplane?
Now I can't see.
Oh, there it is. All right. So why would Allison pick this as her research equipment? Do you think she's a pilot?
Oh my goodness, you'd be so cool if you were the pilot.
That would be really dope. Well, she says she uses sensing equipment to study the glaciers, so I bet it has something to do about getting her to Antarctica.
Reporting. Parachutes. That would be really cool too.
God, I hope that's part of your research.
All right, let's. I'm just going to give you a little recap of what our friends in the chat are saying. So we have that she parachutes, that she uses it for aerial photography of glacier recession. She uses it to fly to the ice sheet. All right.
I feel like the audience is smarter than us here. Aerial photography of glacier recession. That's actually pretty precise, I think. And maybe
yeah. I like this last one that came in, a radar for ice thickness. So let's see, Allison, do you want to solve this mystery for us?
Sure.
Do you fly the plane?
I do not fly the plane, sadly, and I have also never been to Antarctica or Greenland. So like I mentioned, my research is all done using remote sensing, which means that it's data that's gathered from space or from an airplane. So this is a NASA airplane. It's called the DC-8, and it collects a lot of the data that I use. So it flies to Antarctica or Greenland or Alaska or wherever, and it flies LiDAR, which is, it shoots lasers at the ground to see how far away the ground is from the plane. And it also uses radar to measure ice thickness, as someone in the chat was right on the head about. And it does take pictures of the ice. I primarily use the LiDAR, the laser, and the radar data to measure the thickness of the ice and the surface of the ice. So yeah, great job, Leanne.
Yeah, we've got some smart folks in our audience, but I'm still holding out judgment on our guessers. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you for being here. You're very nice people.
You study plants, I study bacteria. So.
All right, so
I don't know how to do anything smarter than sing, so I'm just here for the vibes.
You know, if you sing your answers, we'll all be that much more impressed. So keep that in mind as we go on through the evening. But let's go ahead and bring up our next photo, which is a research equipment related to the mind. Here we go. I'm kind of in love with this picture. So folks at home, tell us what you think you're looking at, and guessers, feel free to start chatting. Any
I can't
hints
even
on
quite tell
scale?
what I'm looking at, so this has got me stumped.
Yeah, no, Leanne in the audience has a great question. Helen, can you give us an idea of how big this item is?
So this item is about, let's say about 1 foot by 2 feet
Okay.
ish.
Dalton thinks it's a maze for mice. Brad thinks it's to measure brain activity.
I was gonna guess some sort of mouse maze or torture chamber. Like it looks like they go to their end here. Like
All right, I'm not, so Leanne says delayed non-matched to sample testing, which sounds really smart, but I'm not exactly sure what that sentence means.
Is it something that that monitors the stress levels in the mom? So like one end connects to the mom, one end connects to the baby and sees if they're connected.
That's a really good guess. Helen, do you want to let us out of our suspenseful state?
Yes, so everyone who guessed that it was something for mice are correct. You can see the mouse in the left side there. I tried to include that in the picture as a hint. So this is actually a behavioral test that we can use, not necessarily to measure stress. This is something we use mostly at the for the offspring. So when they grow up, we can use this to look at their social behavior. What you see on the two sides are two cages, one that contains another mouse and then another one that contains an object. And we can quantify the amount of time that that mouse spends with either the other mouse being social or with the object being non-social as a measure of some of the behavioral outcomes.
I definitely, when I was looking at this, thought mice are in trouble, Squid Game. This is the Squid Game for mice.
They're not in trouble. This is not their endpoint. This is just one measure.
Helen's research would have taken a dark turn if Jonathan were correct there. I didn't see the mouse in the picture. It's very well camouflaged. So
yeah, I couldn't tell there was a mouse in there.
I think this is a great picture because you do have to look closely for the mice tail. So yeah, way to go.
All right, and last but not least, we have our air photo. So let's bring up the piece of equipment that Marcos provided. And this one is super complex looking, so I can't wait to hear what people think it is for. Let's pin the game board. Okay.
I bet that takes carbon out of the air and makes vodka out of it. Solve climate change, get drunk.
This is the future.
I feel like Marcos would not be working or getting his PhD if that's what he just created.
It just took college parties to the next level.
Our audience says that this is a pool and a spa that Marcos uses in the lab. Let's see, measuring carbon dioxide. Folks are kind of quiet on this one. Let's see.
I was thinking maybe
spa.
a CO2 sponge. Maybe it like can pull out some CO2 from the air.
All right. Final comment from our audience that I see right now is that this is where tornadoes come from. Marcos, are you creating tornadoes in the lab? Tell us the truth.
Unfortunately, or I guess fortunately, I am not creating tornadoes in the lab. I think both of our guessers were, on the right track. This actually does pull CO2 out from like a waste gas before it's emitted into the atmosphere. And it kind of stores that CO2 in a sludge or a mixture that is like the byproduct of this. So this is a small scale demonstration. And so my job, I helped build this with absolutely zero background. So I was like a MacGyver in a shop with another guy who had no background, and we were MacGyvering a lot of the parts together. But I also do look at the costs of the system. So how much is this going to cost us? And if we were to take it to make it bigger and apply it in many places, how much would it cost to do that? and that integrates it into the more like, how real can this be possibly?
Awesome. I love it that two people who had no idea what they're doing are the folks that were tasked with putting this very complex thing together. Well done. All right, thank you everyone for playing along in our second round this evening. We're gonna take about a 1-minute break just to give folks a chance to refill their beverages, but please don't leave because round number 3 is where the hilarity ensues. So be sure to come back. We'll put a little hold music on and see you in about a minute.
Welcome back. So for those of you that are still maybe refilling your beverages, we are going to start round 3. So in round 3, we are going to draw it. This is like Pictionary meets Wheel of Fortune. So there's going to be some guessing and there's going to be some fun drawing. But each contestant will be sent a unique research phrase made up of 3 words, and they will then have 2 minutes to draw it using the annotate feature on Zoom. In real time, the guessers will compete to guess the phrase or the words that make up the phrase. And yeah, so just to let everybody know, sorry, my brain is just not with reading tonight, that the phrases are a goofy take on the person's field. So they're not meant to be completely serious in that sense. And because May the 4th be with you, there is also a Star Wars theme that may relate to those phrases. And so after we guess all of the phrases, we'll also figure out which movie or place from Star Wars each thing represents. All right, so we're going to start with the mind. That means, Helen, are you ready?
As ready as I can be.
All right. So your 2 minutes starts now. Audience, feel free to throw your guesses in the chat. Jonathan and Ash, go ahead and shout out what you think you're looking at.
Well, the mice are back, or at least one of them.
Baby mouse.
Yeah, we got a baby mouse.
Mama mouse, baby.
Dalton says mouse fart. I'm pretty sure it's a baby.
Yeah. Well, we can't see the fart, remember? Not visible. Air is
You
not
can't
visible.
see it. That's what we learned today. So... Oh, she had twins. Okay. So is that a
Happy
litter
month.
of mice? Perhaps it's called a gaggle of mice.
I just
All
want to
right,
make
so there've
sure
been-
y'all see that the 2 words are up on the, you've gotten 2 of the 3 words.
Have we really? Oh, I can't see the
We
words.
have blank mouse mom. So now we have to guess that first word.
I don't know how
I'm
this
just helping you
relates to
out.
Star
The mouse is your father.
Vader mouse mom. Darn.
Is the mom happy? I'm very happy that the mom. I'm very happy that the mom.
Happy,
mouse is
smiling.
It's good to have happy test mice.
20 seconds.
Content mouse mom.
Pressure is on.
Mary mouse mom.
This is not
Ooh,
Luke's
there we
mouse.
go.
I mean, father.
All right, so we got 2 of the answers, but the phrase was the calm mouse mom. So congratulations on figuring out the mouse and the mom part. Excellent. I can annotate the words on the drawing screen. That'll help them out. All right, and then let's go ahead and take down our whiteboard, and we can guess what scene we're seeing here on our game board. So which Star Wars movie and place is represented here? Audience, feel free to just shout it out in the chat. All righty, we have Return of the Jedi and Endor, which are correct. Good job. All right, thank you, Helen. Excellent drawings. We could tell it was a mouse. That was a miracle in its own right. I know I can't draw that well, so fantastic. Are we ready for the next drawer? All right, so next up we have Air, which is Marcos. We're going to send you your 3-word phase, and then you can start drawing as well, and you will have 2 minutes. And your time begins now.
Okay, got a person.
Marcos.
His hands were stung by a bumblebee. Why are they so swollen?
Mitts. No. 1, 2. Left and right.
So that's his left hand. Okay.
Index. Oh, booyah. Index. No, it's not. Is it?
It's
Hand. It is hand.
left hand. Right hand.
Thumb. 1.
Second
Yes,
hand.
second handshake. 1 minute left.
And Han Solo.
Second hand
Smoke.
gases, fossil fuels.
Second hand.
Carbon, smoke. Oh, second hand smoke.
It's not
Is that what it
secondhand
is?
smoke.
It's
Close.
secondhand gas. Secondhand CO2. Secondhand.
You got it. You
It's
got it.
getting
I heard
brown
it.
now, everybody.
heard
It's
it.
no longer a fart.
I heard it in there. Second
Second hand
hand.
fart.
No, it's getting brown. So
That's
it's no
terrible.
longer a fart.
That's terrible. But Jonathan did say the word
He's
in
a
there at one
shark, I
point.
think, everybody.
You got it though. You got it. You got
Oh, I
CO2.
did say it.
It's secondhand CO2. So excellent.
I didn't even know that was a thing. Can
Well,
we have
we
like
had
a
to come up
second
with
what
something.
Can Marcos say what that means? Is that okay?
Yes.
So these are phrases that we made up related to what they study. So not necessarily
Okay.
direct science in there.
Thinking this
But
was something that they use in their community, right? Like Marco says, like, oh, we always talk about secondhand CO2, you know?
It's like their slang. It's like their
Yeah.
version of yeet.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it. All right. And next up, we have our guess on the game board. Which location and which movie?
Tatooine.
So it is Tatooine, and which movie?
The one with Liam Neeson. Was it the shit? My father would be so disappointed in me right now.
I love it. I love it. So we have A New Hope written down. All right. Okay. Last but not least, we have water. Allison, are you ready to blow us away with your artistic skills?
We'll see. Water's really hard to draw.
It is, but it's easier to see than air, as we have learned. All right, we're going to clear the screen and you can get started. There you go. And you have 2 minutes.
Ice. Oh.
Courtney
It's
is
just
giving
the
us our
words.
3
It's just
words.
the word. It's just the words.
He was ready.
Yeah, I was ready.
Oh, I bet that's water.
Happy blob.
Gonna.
Iceberg. No.
Close enough. You've guessed one word. Ice.
It looks like this. Maybe it could be the sun. No, it's a person.
That's a. Is that a little rover robot?
Ah.
Why is he screaming? Is he...
And kind of dancing, like ah.
Well, I think the intention is more like
A flood?
No,
Oh no,
the
because ice
person
is
is-
not a flood.
scared. Is the person
Ice.
drowning?
Ice baby.
You have 1 minute left.
Is that dog? What is it? Blank of dog? Hair of the dog? I don't know.
Keep guessing. What else
Stonehead.
might be on that, on related to that picture?
Okay.
Ice. It's like a dog head cut off from its body, everybody. Like we're-
4, 3,
Oh God.
2, 1.
Did the audience know? Like, come on, audience, help us out here.
This is
So that, I think, is a blank of dog, and the dog is behind a fence. It's a sign. Beware of ice,
Oh.
or beware of floating
Oh.
ice. In this case, so when you were talking about the ice
ice
floating and flooding, and the person screaming, beware of the floating ice.
I like the floaties. That was a good choice. That was
Yeah, this
excellent.
is supposed to be an iceberg, but it's a realistic iceberg. Most
Oh,
icebergs
no,
are
there's
drawn
an
like
iceberg.
this.
Oh, we got the iceberg. That was your iceberg is flawless.
And the dog was very easy to understand too. So this was pretty
True.
fantastic.
Thanks.
All right. And what Star Wars reference do we have related to floating ice? Which location? Anybody else remember the ice planet? Yes, Hoth, the planet Hoth, The Empire Strikes Back is correct. Congratulations. All right. So we have successfully completed round 3. And does anybody have the score as it currently stands?
-7. 40. Like what?
The score is we both lost.
Fair is fair.
I think we have like 3 scorekeepers behind the scenes here.
Yes,
Everyone-
everyone is a winner. That's it. Or a loser.
No.
No, you're
And
all
the
winners.
points don't
You're all
matter.
winners.
Leanne, you know where we're going with this.
All right. So the score that I have right now is that Jonathan is ahead by 2 points.
How I don't even know how that's possible. Like we don't even remember. Like
I think the audience has been helping quite a bit on a lot of this stuff. I love it. All right. So because we have a little time, I'm going to pass this over to Courtney, who's going to tell us who wins the game and take any questions.
Well, apparently it's Jonathan with his whopping
I feel
2
like
more
half
points.
one. With the Star Wars guess. Come on, that's like bonus points.
That is true.
You know,
Those are nice. bonus
I agree.
points.
I think I should get bonus points for science fiction.
Well, and to
counts.
be honest, you asked the sciencier questions. I mean, it is the professor in the room who brought up farts. So we'll just leave it at that. But all right. So for the first time in Guess Who history, we are actually not over time. And we might get to actually talk a wee bit to our researchers about their work. So what we'll do now is we will give Jonathan and Ash a chance to go off screen and rest. Although if you have questions for our contestants, you're welcome to add those as well. You at home and the audience, if you have burning questions you want to ask of our contestants to find out more about their research, we'll take as many as we have time for. So throw them into the chat and let's get to talking. Oh,
I like the comment that was made that they are such cool scientists. I
They
will
are
second
cool.
that.
come on, folks, we finally have time for Q&A. All right, we have a question for Helen. Thank you, Leanne. Helen, what is one thing you wish that everyone knew before getting pregnant based on your research? It's a great question.
That is a great question. I think the one thing you should know is probably what everyone kind of knows, like stress doesn't stop during pregnancy. What we hope to do is to find ways to help prevent any effects of the stress from impacting your child. Obviously not replacing the need for things like mental health, access to mental health treatments, therapy, different things like that, but as something additive to that, rather than something to either replace it or, to blame the mother, since stress is so ubiquitous.
Very good. Marcos, what is your opinion on if we can create better ways to clean CO2 out of the atmosphere?
That's a great question. I'm pretty optimistic. I mean, a lot of the technologies that we have now are in there what we would call, like, pardon any pun, Helen, but infancy. They're very young, and that means that they can only get better and cheaper. As we make mistakes and apply them and develop them, it's just going to get cheaper and better. So I'm optimistic. It's a question of, like, how long do we need? That's the question that's more concerning of, if we need it tomorrow, that's not possible. If we need it in like 15, 20 years, maybe.
Allison, what technologies do you wish you had access to do your research better? Wayne, you're really good at typing.
I think I get it. I talked about radar quite a bit. I wish there were more radar. Right now I am actually doing like a mini study on whether ice shelves are actually floating. Like, we've thought that they were for years, and my research right now with the limited radar that we have shows that we're probably underestimating how quickly the ice is melting. So just more radar everywhere. Better radar that can be flown from space instead of on an airplane, because the reason we have so little radar data is because it's only like the signal's only strong enough when it's flown from an airplane, or when it's like dragged across the surface of the ice.
I was curious as to how close to the surface of the ice the airplane, like how far away can it be for its tools to still capture the data?
That's a good question. And actually, I don't know the answer off the top of my head. It has to be lower than a commercial flight for sure. So you know, I could find the data in like 5 minutes. So maybe I'll do that and get back to you.
We always post follow-up on our website. So yeah, feel free to share that after the fact. All right, we have another question coming in. Allison, do we know the thickness of the ice from the bottom up in the northern poles, not over land?
Yes. So I'm thinking that Leanne is referring to sea ice, which is just frozen seawater. And that's like pretty easy to get the thickness of, either using radar or by using like how much ice we know floats in a glass of water versus, how much is above the water line and how much is below. And it's also pretty easy to like go out and measure that. You can take a helicopter or even a plane and land it on the sea ice and like drill a hole and see how thick it is. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
All right, do our guessers or any of our folks at home have any final, one more question. Helen, do you think there are ways to stop anxiety and depression from being transferred to the babies?
I think there are a couple of potential ways, none of which have been able to reach the point of developing clinical treatments yet. The one thing that that my work is particularly looking at is looking at the role of the gut microbiome in trying to mediate that. So potentially the use of probiotics or prebiotics to help with it. It's, again, still early stages of work, but we're hopeful that that could provide some way to mediate that. I do want to also, I saw the question in the Q&A. So we name our male breeder mice. We don't name our pregnant female test mice. We try not to get too attached to those mice. Since we look at them for other molecular things later in life.
Well stated, understood. All right, we are coming to the end. I appreciate both of our guesters for spending their evening. Oh my goodness, that's a sound effect. That was kind of scary there for a second. I want to thank Jonathan and Ash for joining us. I want to thank Allison and Helen and Marcos. I'm going to pass it off to Wayne to say our final goodbyes. But before I do, I want to say congratulations to all three of you on the fabulous job tonight and the fabulous things you have going on in your life. Thank you for being our contestants. And Wayne, do you want to close out for the evening?
Sure, I will close off. On behalf of everyone for making Guess Who possible, I would like to thank the Ohio State Energy Partners for partially funding tonight's event and the contributions from numerous Ohio State departments that make up the STEM Impact Collaborative. I would like to thank all of you for joining us this evening, audience and our contestants and guessers. But thank you to Ash and Jonathan for serving as our guessers, and Helen, Marcos, and Allison for serving as our contestants. Also behind the scenes, we have the STEM Impact Collaborative made up of myself, Wayne Schlingman, Catherine O'Brien, Cynthia Cannon, Monica Delgado, Courtney Price, and Jason Cervenek. And I'm Wayne.
I'm Courtney.
Excellent. And we hope that you can and will join the STEM Impact Collaborative for future programming with Guess Who, which will come up roughly every 4 months, and with Westfest in the fall when we come back for our fall semester. So stay tuned. But thank you all for coming.
Have a great night.